Hello, wealth hackers. Getting motivated is like showering. You have to do it regularly for it to be effective. I'm paraphrasing what my friend Russell Westcott shared with me, so I thought I'd share this quote that meant a lot to me after reading on social media how humble it is to not broadcast one's charity efforts. Quote, "Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are meant to shine, as children do. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others." End quote, by Marianne Williamson. I don't know Marianne Williamson, but this quote is well timed, and I posted it to my Facebook, and it kind of got a lot of likes. So I thought I'd share it here. For you wealth hackers who are scaling up, you cannot possibly do so without getting attention. Attention from potential joint venture partners, private money lenders, hiring team members, for finding buyers for your wholesale deals. If your plan is scaling up, you need to put yourself out there, including your charity work. To each their own. If they want to share publicly, that's a personal choice. I just don't think it's appropriate to judge others who do. Live and live and let live. And making anonymous donations is totally fun. If you've never done it, try it. It's hard not to scroll through social media and find a worthy cause. A friend of a friend told me once how their gym friend is a single mom who has a great daughter. As all parents do, they want their kids to have opportunity. This young lady loved hockey. The daughter, that is. Hockey is expensive, if you didn't know. All you hockey parents know it is. So what did this friend of a friend do? They offered mom gift certificates to pay for the hockey equipment. She declined. The donor then reached out to the hockey coach and mailed him the gift certificates under the agreement that the donor would remain anonymous to the child. Here's the note from the single mom. Her first game going into the arena was such an awesome moment for both of us, and her last game, which turned into 2, was so awesome. She showed such bravery, but wanting to try goalie again and for another team of people she did not know. It was a very proud mama moment, and one which I know will continue to build her character in all the important ways. Thank you so much for the role you played in this. It means a lot to us. And then in parentheses, she still doesn't know it was you. End quote. Needless to say, this friend of a friend was happy to play a small part. If you want to lead, leading by example is one of the best methods. And if you ever post anything on social media with you doing something awesome, know that you inspire me. No idea where this is going. I didn't have plans on what I was going to talk about today, but this is what came out. But let's talk about kids. My daughter received a small digital camera for Christmas. She loved it. Loved as in past tense because I took it away and I hid it from her when she wasn't looking. Out of sight, out of mind. The camera comes with some retro basic games, including Snake. If you owned a cell phone from around the year 2000, you know what I'm talking about, where you control a very unevolved digital snake, very basic. It's just like square dots on a screen. Anyways, you control the snake to eat food while avoiding the walls and your own tail. Anyways, my daughter was obsessed with the camera and these games. She didn't want to, when she didn't have it, she wanted it. So she's like her dad in that I'm addicted to my smartphone and social media. I'm not happy with my own issues, nor do I want my kids to be addicted to screen time like their old man. So I hid the camera, and my daughter's attitude and emotional control immediately improved. We found the same to be true when we got home from the cruise ship. We were on a cruise vacation during the holidays, and our kids had way too much ice cream daily, sometimes twice, ice cream diet while on the cruise ship, and we weren't impressed with their attitude or what they were eating or lack of eating at dinner. So when we got home, we got them back on our regular routine. Again, our problems were resolved. So see problem, fix it. My kids get very little screen time each week, almost none during the school days, which is why my son was able to, just yesterday, was able to sit with Cherry and I while having lunch with Greg Hapstrit for 2 hours. He had his toy monster truck and that's it. Otherwise, he sat there quietly, just taking in his new environment. His mind isn't chasing stimulus all the time. Well, or as in the stimulus of being in a new restaurant in downtown Toronto was enough stimulus for him. He didn't need a device. Now, I have no idea what I'm doing as a parent. I'm hardly well read in this area. Please don't listen to what I'm saying as gospel. But one of my neighbors is a child psychologist. He works for our school board, and ADD and related drug prescriptions are on the up. You know what else is on the up? Probably screen time. Never in just think how, like, my first cell phone was like a lot of money. and I think I was 19. I was 20 years old when I got it. How old are kids getting these devices? And that phone back then was not an entertainment device. It was a communication device. Texting was ridiculously expensive, so it was mainly for phone calls. So I didn't spend that much time making phone calls, not compared to what I see people today, how many hours they spend on their using screen devices. Anyways, I don't know what I'm doing. Don't listen to me. This is just what I do. I'm not interested in my kids having behavioral issues or being on drug prescriptions, so this is what I'm trying out. And that also includes when we leased our minivan. We've had 2 minivans now. We leased them both without the TV package, the entertainment package with the drop-down screens from the ceiling, that the car salesperson told us was an absolute must. Like anything else, us well hackers are faced with seeing a problem, and then we go create a solution. For example, don't want to work forever or retire broke? Hustle today to invest for the future. However you can best invest, including investing in a coach, which leads us to this week's guest, Elizabeth Kelly. Elizabeth is a friend, a real estate investor for 15 years, specializing in buy, rent, and hold, rent to own, and flipping strategies. She doesn't mention here that she does quite a bit of multifamily. Sorry, Elizabeth, I'm ad-libbing your bio. She's been a legacy trainer for the last 8 years. Legacy is better known as Rich Dad. The Rich Dad in Canada. She's been an investment coach for 4 years. She's founder of Sandstone Property Management in Kirkland Lake, which is her own personal property management company that manages her properties and her joint venture properties and some clients as well. She's a member of the Executive Advisory Council of the Ontario Landlords Watch. She also used to have a mortgage license and was a practicing mortgage agent. So again, she left that out, but I wanted to share that. She's pretty well-rounded. She knows her stuff. And without further ado, I give you Elizabeth Kelly. Elizabeth, how are you?
Great. How are you doing, Erwin? Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you virtually, since you live... How far do you live from Toronto?
About 600 kilometers, I think, thereabouts.
Is that all?
Depending on where in Toronto, because Toronto's so big, right? So 6 or 7 hours drive from Toronto.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
And you live where you invest?
Yes, I do. We didn't originally. I'm originally from down south, Toronto area. Grew up in Scarborough, moved to Newmarket when I got married. Total down south girl. And
Down south.
yeah, I know. Everybody's like, where are you going for the holidays? I'm like, down south. They're going, oh, somewhere hot.
Florida?
I'm like, yeah.
Toronto.
Because it's way hotter there than it is up here. It's minus 27 with the wind chill today. Oh, that's nothing.
Oh my.
I'm just waiting for the minus 50 days to hit because they're coming.
Okay, folks, just to give context, today is January 8th, where I am right now. I believe it's -3. I live in Burlington, Ontario, which is just west of Toronto. Toronto is likely -3 as well. What is your temperature without the wind chill?
I think it's around minus 20 right now, minus 18.
And we are in the same province?
Yeah, we are. And we're not even at the top of Ontario. We're only halfway up.
Can you name another major city near Kirkland Lake so folks can reference without having to pull over from their car or
yeah,
Googling?
North Bay is about halfway. So we're up by Timmins.
Near Timmins. You're halfway to North Bay?
No, North Bay, like coming from Toronto to Kirkland Lake, North Bay is about the halfway point. That's where we stop for a break, grab some gas, get some food, and we know we're 50% there. Okay,
so for the geographically impaired, what is the population of North Bay and then Kirkland Lake?
Well, I think North Bay is about 40,000 thereabouts. The population of Kirkland Lake is around 10.
Okay, thank you. I my context is when I went to University of Western Ontario, the population of that school is 27,000 full-time undergraduate students. That's just the undergrads. So you add the postgrads, we're probably close to the population of North Bay. So let alone North Kirkland Lake. Okay. So before we get into real estate, before we started recording, you mentioned you were feeling the blahs. And what did you do about it?
Well, there's the things I did that I should do, and then there's the things that some people might disagree with.
Okay.
But what I kind of looked at was I sort of weighed the pros and cons. So several people up here recommend tanning during the winter because, and I'm not talking about like the fake orange glow tans. I'm talking about, a few minutes, a couple of times a week, just to keep, the vitamin D going, to keep you feeling good. And I hadn't tanned since university before there was all the huge, skin cancer, everything else going on.
Mhm.
So anyways, I thought, you know what, I'm feeling pretty blah. And I kind of made a decision about, is it important that I feel good now, or is it important that I worry about what's going to come in the future and how I'm going to manage and handle that? So I'm sure there's no doctors out there who would recommend or advocate for what I'm doing, and I'm certainly not recommending it for anybody else.
Mhm.
However, I went for a 4-minute tan last night, and I feel pretty good today.
4 minutes?
4 minutes, that's all
That's
it took.
it. Okay.
I'm a ghost, so 4 minutes is is the maximum setting apparently before I turn into a lobster.
Sure.
So 4 minutes, and I slept well last night. I had lots of energy today, so maybe it's just a little bit. I mean, our days are long up here, and we have snow pretty much every day. That's the thing I find one of the differences, anyways, between Northern Ontario and Southern Ontario. Southern Ontario, you get days where you have sun or days where you have rain. Up here, there's generally a period of snow at some point during the day. Like when you look at the forecast, there's snow pretty much every day.
Mhm.
It's just a question of how much we're getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've done tanning, which was my short term, get my butt in gear solution.
Mhm.
My longer term solution, and I know there's a lot of other people working on this as well, is to really get clear about goal setting and focus priorities for 2020. And I hired a new coach in December who I am loving working with. And yeah, just really focusing on structuring the business. By the time I get to the end of the year, I want to be able to scale way back on what I'm doing for my management company and focus a little bit more on giving back in a few different ways. So yeah, I got some different priorities for this year, and I'm really excited about that.
Okay. There's a lot you just said there that I need to dig into.
Okay.
People say like, these are their words, not mine. Like, oh, you're so good at asking questions and doing interviews. Like, I'm just a curious person and I want to learn. So first, before I let it go, is the tanning. Do you know the name of it? The style of tanning that you were doing?
No.
No idea. Did you mention something like red light or something? What was it? That sounds bad.
So there's one red light thing that's come out. Again, I haven't tanned since I was in university, so we're talking 20-something years here. But there's a new one that's come out that is red light therapy. So I'm going to do some digging into that. But apparently it just helps you feel better and look better. Right. But it doesn't have the harmful side effects of regular tanning beds.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool. I'll check that out. But in the meantime, I think I'm just going to up my vitamin D, and this probably won't be a regular thing for me, but it was definitely the kick in the bum that I needed to get going again.
Vitamin D injection or pills?
No, I'm usually really good. I'm pretty regimented in terms of, all winter long, I take an immune boost. I take vitamin C, vitamin D. I personally feel I don't have time to get sick. So I do a lot of preventative type stuff so that I don't get sick. I consider it a waste of time to be sick. Mm-hmm. So I try my best not to waste my time and other people's too.
Excellent. I hope you don't mind answering these questions because in my opinion, high functioning entrepreneurs, investors, you should learn how they operate because maybe this is the thing that gets the person to the next level because seasonal affective disorder is a real thing, right?
Absolutely.
So if we can help one person with red light therapy, which we think is the name, it might work for someone else. And just as a quick side note, it is the red sun that powers Superman. Okay. Just so maybe it's aligned with that. So you may,
perfect.
So no surprises if you turn into Superwoman, you sprout a cape and you start flying. Okay.
That would be awesome. I'd love that.
You mentioned you have a coach. You are a coach. Why do you need a coach? What's up with that? This self-coach.
Well, it's funny, but I find it interesting because there's a lot of stuff on social media. And I'm just coming back. Today was the first time I've logged into Facebook in probably 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I just took a complete break. But there's a lot of people talking about, the books they're reading and that kind of thing. And I think being a coach and hiring a coach and running a business, it's really important the quality of the information that you put in. So I feel that if I'm not continuing to improve and increase and put new ideas into my thoughts, my processes, my patterns, then I become stale and stagnate. So when I'm teaching, I always talk to my students about being a sponge. Every single situation you're in is an opportunity to learn, whether, you're at a barbecue with someone or whether you are, out at the grocery store. Life, I find, is really what you make it. So if you make yourself a sponge and your goal is to learn something in every single situation you come out of, then you become much more engaged in your day-to-day interactions. And you're always looking for that opportunity, that kernel of knowledge, the, input or information that's going to change, the way you look at things, the way you interact with people, the way you do business. So I personally believe that as a coach, it's my job to be my best person, to use my time for its highest and best use. And then I think having a coach is an investment in yourself. And I don't for a second think that I know everything that there is to know about investing or about personal fulfillment or anything else like that. So I've hired a coach to help kind of take me to the next level where I want to be. Because as investors, we reach a lot of similar sort of plateaus in our business growth. And I don't want to get stuck in this plateau. Sorry?
I blame the bank. But you know what? I bet you can overcome that objection. I know you can.
Well, you need a good coach, Erwin. And I know you have one too. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, what you love the most about your coach as well. But I believe that there's so much to learn. And if I can invest a little bit of time, money, and energy with someone who will teach me the pitfalls, the common pitfalls, and I can avoid them, then in the long run, I'm going to save myself time, money, and energy while investing in my personal, goal achievement and fulfillment. So I know it's kind of a tough market out there to be choosing a coach. And I definitely had some bumps and some hiccups along the road where I was looking at a few different people, and it was really challenging for me to sort of drill it down and figure out who is going to be the best fit for me.
Right.
So the last month has been a little bit, I don't know. It's reminiscent of kind of where I was 10 years ago before I made the commitment to my education, where, my husband and I, Emmett, we were looking at different options and we're going, this is a lot of money. Like, should we invest this? Is this going to be worth it? Are we going to get results? And we sort of hummed and hawed and everything. And in hindsight, that money we invested in our education was probably the best investment we've ever made. Certainly, I mean, I have a science degree in kinesiology, or gym, as my husband likes to call it. He says I'm a gym teacher. And then he has an engineering degree. And the money, that we have made from real estate far exceeds what we ever got from our university degrees.
Either half the people listening to this would agree or are already there, and the other half will get there. where real estate's earned them more than the university. And not disparaging university.
It's valuable.
Just my own 2 cents about structured education, public education, university, high school, those sorts of things. I see people bash subjects like algebra, finite, all those sorts of things. Certain other subjects I would attack more than others. But take calculus, for example. I think if nothing else, it was really good practice for problem solving.
Yep.
And can you think of a better skill to leave school with than to be a problem solver?
I think I always struggled with math. And I think that what math taught me was determination, like the goal to, this is where I need to be. And I need to, if I struggle, then I need to employ different means maybe than other people in order to get to where I need to be. So I remember being in university and I hired a tutor, and this is a little known.
Hired a tutor, which is a form of a different name for a coach.
Exactly. Well, by the time I got to the Christmas break in my first year of university, I was failing 2 classes. And I mean, that's not me. Like, I went in with 90s. From high school. I just found the transition so hard. You either give up and quit because it's hard, or you dig in and you keep going and figure out what you need to do to be successful. And, it's funny talking to you about that, Erwin, because I hadn't really thought about that. But that was good preparation for life, because it keeps happening over and over again, right? It's a pattern. It's a cycle. So, I think that's one of the things I know you and I have talked a bit over the last few months about too, is that, as real estate investors, we can face adversity. And
oh no, we all do, not can. It's just when and how much and how often.
And the question really comes down to, what are you going to do with that adversity? Are you going to, give up and roll over and pack it in and go home? Or are you going to dig in and learn what you need to learn and do what you need to do to come out on the other side? And it doesn't matter how successful people look on the outside. it takes a lot of guts and a lot of honesty to share some of the very real struggles that some people, myself included, face every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to remember that Facebook is not real life.
Oh, it's not real.
No, it's not. Neither is Instagram
and
or TikTok.
You as a coach, I think you should use this tutoring thing, because I have lots of friends who spend easily $400 a month in tutoring. So
really?
They'll spend it on their kids, but they won't spend it on themselves.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting? My kid's getting math lessons, but I won't pay for myself to get coaching lessons, which will help make me six figures passively a year.
Absolutely. And the thing is, when it's our own money, I find we're so much more invested. You know, when it's your parents paying for your coaching or the tutoring for their kids, totally. It's like the kids, it's hit or miss. What did they eat today? How much sleep did they get? That's kind of, the measure generally of how dialed in they are. But, when it's our money and it's our future on the line, I find that, we're a lot more committed to it.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many other things that we need to touch on.
Okay.
You said you want to scale back on management. So for the listener's benefit, can you explain give us the, 2-minute version of your business? Because you said scale back management of your business. Most people a lot of people listening are expanding their management because they're growing their portfolios. And I know a lot of people out there do not hire property managers. Anyways, give us like the 2-minute version of your business, 5-minute version of your business, and then explain to me why you're looking to scale back.
Sure. So in 2010, we started looking at Kirkland Lake as a market. Myself, my husband, Emmett, and our joint venture partners. And our original goal was to buy real estate, invest in it passively, have a property manager, and just use this to supplement our income with the eventual goal of building a portfolio big enough to retire. So we went through a couple of different local property managers, and we really found, particularly once we educated ourselves, we had a certain level that we wanted our properties to be maintained at. We had a certain, relationship that we wanted to have with our tenants. We had a certain way that we wanted, things managed and things done. And I'm sure thinking that you're the only ones who can do something is not necessarily the best way to operate in life. But what we just found was it would be easier for us to start our own management company and look after our own properties and have staff who reported to us, as opposed to working with property managers who had other responsibilities, other priorities, and might not be able to handle the pace that we wanted to grow at. Mm-hmm. So we started our own management company. And we have great relationships with the property managers that we've had in Kirkland Lake, and we've all helped each other out along the way. The right fit for us was to self-manage with the assistance of staff. Mm-hmm. So over the last however many years, we have just grown our company. Initially, we just managed our own properties. Now we manage properties for other owners as well, if they're interested. We've actually added a new component to the business, I guess about 2 years ago. The BRRRR strategy is so popular, but a lot of investors are finding it really tough to find markets where, they can buy properties low enough to be able to, put in the construction costs, renovate, and still pull all of their capital back out.
Not just low enough, but not crazy ass competition. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
Because everything anywhere near the GTA is competitive. I don't know how competitive your market is.
There are still deals up here. Let's put it that way. There are definitely still opportunities for deals.
Low-hanging fruits available.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So what we wanted to do was give people the opportunity to do that. So, we looked at some of the local contractors and that kind of thing. And again, we really like to maintain control. We run our property management business that it doesn't matter whose name is on title for the property. We're going to look after the property as if it's our own. I don't care if it's a JV partner. I don't care if it's, somebody else who owns it and we're not on title anywhere. We're going to run the properties as if it's our own. So we're always looking for opportunities to provide cost savings, opportunities. We do things like, instead of putting in a smoke detector that needs a battery checked and replaced every year or every 6 months, really is what it should be done. We spend a little bit more and we buy the smoke detectors that have the 10-year battery. So it costs a little bit more up front, but the savings long term for an investor, they're going to save hundreds of dollars by not having to have somebody go out every 6 months and check all the smoke detectors and replace all the batteries. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we provide to all of our investors. And, we kind of looked around Kirkland Lake, and there's a lot of properties up here that were in pretty rough condition.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last 2 years, there's some big properties that have sold and are being renovated. And you can see the uptick in the market, and you can see the people, coming into town, the contractors to work on the mines, the miners to work in the mines. You can see the growth. The average price of homes has increased too. So we wanted to be able to.
Can you share some figures on how much the market's gone up?
I think I'd have to talk to a realtor, and it really depends, whether you're looking at the lower end homes, the higher end homes. But I mean, there's properties out there that, were listed for sale for $80,000 last year, and they're selling for 120 this year, kind of thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a parking spot in Toronto,
I know. But the challenge with distance investing is you have to have someone you trust, right? Because your property manager can literally eat up your cash flow into nothing.
Because that happened to you, did it not?
Yeah, it did. We did have some challenges. We have properties in New Brunswick as well. And we had some challenges with property management where, we're paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, and the property manager is sending statements going like, there's nothing left. I'm not sending you anything this month. And I'm going, how is that possible?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like we've got, X number of units out there. You've got 35, 45 units out there. Like, how are you sending me $0 every month? Like that's not a sustainable business model.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, we got that sorted out. We're happy with our property manager in New Brunswick now. He's doing a good job. So
did you switch or you just?
No, we switched.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. No, we switched. Yeah, definitely.
Do you have some key metrics that you follow? I'd like the listener to be able to take away some tips. Like, what are you watching for in your distance management? What can you like in the business world, we call them like KPIs, key performance indicators, or KSFs, key success factors. Are there certain metrics that you're watching for, and to make sure that everything's working out well? There's money in the bank.
I'm looking for $100 per door per month in positive cash flow as a minimum.
Got it.
As a minimum. There has to be $100 there, especially when you're distance managing. It's not feasible to jump in the car and drive 7 hours, on a Friday night to come and collect rents on Saturday. Like the smaller markets are where the opportunity is, in my experience right now. The smaller
for markets. Investing? Well, actually, it seems like you're getting value investing as well.
Yeah, but you have to have somebody there who's going to look after the properties when you're not there. Yeah. So, I mean, we encourage all of our JV partners, our investors, come up anytime, come stay with us, take a look at your properties, take a look at what's going on, do some fishing, whatever else you want to do. Up here, it's a lot about lifestyle, right? It's very outdoorsy, very much more relaxed. In real estate, it always comes down to risk versus reward. So a lot of people are really fixated in the GTA, I think, because they feel that there's higher risk or lower risk in the larger markets like Toronto and the surrounding areas, because they figure that, no matter what's going on with cash flow, the properties will still appreciate. Well, hopefully people kind of got a sense from a couple of years ago, what appreciation is like a cherry on the top of a sundae. But if you're wanting to retire with real estate investing, or if you're wanting to transition into investing full time, it's cash flow. Equity in a property is not going to pay your bills every month. And we know it's harder and harder to pull the equity out, right?
Yeah. People have to look at their goals to determine how they're going to invest.
It's reward versus perceived risk. So in the smaller markets, the cash flow tends to be higher.
Yep.
So that's why, we're able to say we want $100 per door. And there's definitely some buildings that there's more than that available, depending on, the markets you look at. And what you really want to look at is the employment in the smaller markets. Are there multiple businesses or industries that are providing employment for people?
Right.
What are the long-term projections in the town? Are people seeing population growth? Is the average income increasing? These are all the type of metrics that we look at that brought us to Kirkland Lake and that continue to keep us here, because, a lot of people are going, what's next for you guys? Well, we don't really feel that we've capitalized or maximized everything here yet. So we're quite happy to stay. We're quite comfortable.
And then for people who do invest around the GTA, I'm often asked to compare Oshawa to Hamilton. And then you just simply have to look at what is the major employer in Oshawa.
Yeah.
They named the
Which
hockey
it's
team after them.
changed. Yeah, it's changed a lot though, right? Like
Changed a
in
lot.
20 years
Still pretty
ago, it
heavy.
would have been GM, hands down, would have been the major employer.
Yeah.
But they're no longer a factor. And now there's a whole bunch of other industries that have picked up. And it comes down, I think, to affordability and quality of life. Where do people want to live? Where can, how much is their income? How much can they afford to pay each month? And then where do they get the best quality of life for that amount? So, if you're in the outskirts and in the smaller markets, you might get paid less, but it costs you less and you have a better quality of life. I used to work in downtown Toronto. And I would spend an hour and a half each way commuting. And now my drive to work is about 3 minutes long. So I've gained another 3 hours in my day. And that's my time to do what I want with.
Amazing. And speaking of risk, like we just had a correction. You actually alluded to it earlier. So anyone who's newer, for example, and you're looking for a new city to invest in, actually have a look at what each of the cities, any list city that you're looking at investing in, look at how the prices behaved after the housing fairness plan, which was so fair and did such wonderful things for our market, including what rents, lovely things have gone with rents. And then, as you mentioned, I think it's a risk checkbox that isn't getting enough attention is the availability of quality property management in the city that you want to invest in. And not just one property manager. Like, for example, in my city, we don't have a lot of options for quality property management. So my belief is, more the merrier. The more quality property management options you have in a city, the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because like we talked about earlier, they can make or break your cash flow, right?
Absolutely. Especially if you have no interest in managing your property and you live like an hour or more away, then And from my own experience, over 90% of our clients use property management. I find it's more the do-it-yourselfers are doing more of their own management. And then like in your situation, you actually had a scale where it made sense to bring management in-house. And it's still a personal decision. Usually see it in folks who are really small or they have some scale, like yourself, like a Ryan Carr, like a Polis Investments, where they have numerous apartment buildings where the scale made sense that they brought property management in-house. But then also look at Pierre-Paul Turgeon, who does apartment buildings. He still outsources property management. He has his very good, sharp KPIs and KSFs to monitor to make sure everything's tickety-boo. Right. So the reason why I reached out to you originally for this show was, like you said, I thought you were going to talk to it when you opened up Facebook again. The volume of, so to take a step back, real estate's been booming for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
It really didn't even take a pause during the financial crisis because our immigration is just so strong and our interest rates are so low. So technically, the beginning of the last cycle was 2008, 2009, but really it was just a real small pause. So this boom cycle has been going for a long time. And whenever there's money to be made, more people jump into it. As in, like, there's lots of real estate investors, which is a great thing. And then as a result of that, also, there's more of these coaches. There are so many coaches.
Yes.
I believe someone had told me they were a coach, and then I called you. Because I was at the point where, okay, I've known them for a while. Now they're a coach. I had no idea they were a coach. I don't know what kind of program they built out. It's totally cool that people want to coach people. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just the way I was raised. My dad always, classic Asian parent, was like, oh, Dad, I have a B plus. Like, why is it not an A? Oh, Dad, here's an A. Where's the plus? Never good enough. The way my brain works is I always believe in working with the best of the best. So I know you've been paid good money to lead educational organizations on the subject of real estate. Because my thinking is when someone comes out of the blue and says they're a coach, I don't know how much prep work they've done. I don't know if they've built a course. I don't know if they've built a program. My first thought is, and I don't know, so I'm not judging anyone. My first thought is they're acting more of a consultant. I'm here to answer questions for you should you have any. I'm here to guide you along this very small part of real estate that I know very well. Nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to hear perspective of someone who's actually been teaching for how long? How long have you been teaching real estate?
I've been a trainer for Legacy for 8 years.
So you've been paid to teach people for 8 years. Yeah. And how many people per session, per semester, however you quantify it?
I don't really keep track sort of from that perspective. I would say probably about 1,500 students a year.
1,500 students a year. Okay.
Yeah, broken down over my different courses.
That's a lot. You've taught a lot of people then. Okay. So you've done this.
It's been an honor. Like real estate, to be honest, real estate is what gave me the opportunity to discover that this was my passion.
And some of your students are actually well known in our community. They're quite the social media darlings.
which always makes me so happy, because I love seeing students, from knowing them from a few years before, when they were thinking, maybe I want to invest in real estate, to seeing what they've accomplished in just a few years. Like it just reaffirms my confidence in real estate as an investment strategy. I think the important thing for people to keep in mind is that you get out of it what you put into it. And I think, nobody is successful without facing adversity and without putting in the time, energy, and effort to really be able to overcome challenges and to grow their business. I mean, real estate is not something you do when, you have 5 minutes to spare on the weekend.
No. And people do it, which saddens me. They try to make, passive six figures with like 1, 2, 3 properties without really wanting to put any effort. And also, I want to talk too much because I want to give you lots of time to share what it is that you teach students and how the work that you've done and to put into programs. But for example, I saw a movie, I posted on my Instagram. I saw Ip Man 4. So Donnie Yen movie, Kung Fu movie. Ip Man is famous. He's famous because he's Bruce Lee's teacher. Who is more famous, Bruce Lee or Ip Man?
Oh, Bruce Lee.
Not even close.
Yeah.
If you wanted to become the best you could be, would you rather learn from Bruce Lee? Say you want to learn Chinese Kung Fu. Would you want to learn from Bruce Lee, the student, or would you learn from his teacher?
Oh, I'd pick his teacher, but I didn't even know his name until you mentioned it.
And that's one of the points that I wanted to make is I would hazard to guess that some people know some of your students because of their social media marketing over yourself. Because you're busy, you're not looking to grow like that, and I don't want people to ever discount that just because you're. So there's two ways to look at it. It's choose whoever you want to work with, whoever you decide you want to you drive with better. You think go ahead and look past about who's advertising to you to become their coaching client. Feel free to look past them, because I literally did this when I was looking for someone to teach me how to wholesale. I asked a wholesaler I knew. Right. And then he recommended somebody. I said, and so I asked them, how much experience does that guy have? Less than 12 months. Okay, fantastic. Who is their teacher? That's the conversation immediately moved on. Right. So, if you have 3 years experience, 5 years experience, great. If there's someone better out there, especially at the same price, I would go for the better person, not the more well-known person. And then the other way to look at it is, and I feel so bad for people who, like, I know people listen to this show and don't think they're good enough to raise money, or they don't think that they deserve it, or they don't think anyone will ever do it, or they won't put themselves out there because they think they're not good enough. So the opposite is also true. There are people who are not as good as you. And so I'm speaking to the listener. There are people who are not as good as you getting other people's money right now or getting business that would be better with you. So that's you as well. I believe that coaching clients will be better served by the teacher, yourself, than your students.
That's really kind of you, Erwin. I really appreciate
Isn't that just simply logic? Isn't it at least worth an interview of both yourself, the student, and the teacher?
I think so. It took me a while to decide to become a coach, because for me, I'm not doing it as a, I want to coach and I want, notoriety or popularity or money so for me, it was very important to make sure that I had the experience that I felt would be necessary and valuable to share with other investors. I think, there's a saying out there that it's really easy to make money in real estate when the prices are going up, but the real investors, are shown when the prices of properties drop, because there are so many people out there who are still buying for appreciation. And it makes me fearful for them, because, every day I'm part of Ontario Landlords Watch. I'm part of a number of different investment circles, and I listen to the decisions that people are making, and the metrics around what they're looking at and how they're deciding to do things. And, it never ceases to amaze me how many people start a business in real estate, but don't read the Residential Tenancy Act in Ontario and don't realize, the reality of day-to-day property management and ownership in Ontario. because it's different in Ontario and Manitoba and BC and all the other provinces. Every province is different. So, when we started out in real estate, we made some bad mistakes. We made some really bad mistakes. And we lost money. And anybody who tells you they haven't lost money in real estate, they either haven't been around long enough, or they're not being honest. I mean, I shouldn't say that, because there are definitely people out there who, haven't encountered perhaps some of the adversity that others have. I definitely feel, I mean, you look at us, I've been a real estate investor for 15 years. I learn something new every day. Technology changes, business changes, mortgage lending changes. And I was a mortgage agent for a couple of years. I worked in insurance. I had my, home, auto, and life insurance licenses. Like, I've been in a lot of businesses in and around real estate, even, either before or during my time in real estate. And, we've still faced some pretty significant challenges. My husband was really sick in 2017. And I had a mortgage business that I was working on. And I literally, I'd sort of left him, Kirkland Lake Property Management. I mean, I was here, I was present, I was still doing things, but I had left the primary responsibility with him. And when he had to take, I guess he took pretty much 6 months off of work. And when he had to do that, that was huge for me. Having to basically put my entire business on hold and come up and figure out, learn all the systems and processes and everything that was going on from a day-to-day basis, right back into financials and everything else. I mean, people don't realize, that this is a business. This isn't, I'm going to dabble in real estate and retire at 45 instead of 65. This is, I need to know budgeting. I need to know financials. I need to know how to do projections. I need to know how to potentially hire staff. And if it's not, staff for your company because you're self-managing, then it would be how to hire, a good property manager. And it really, I think, starts, like you said, with knowing, how to find and hire the right people for your power team to even find the investment properties. I mean, you're a realtor. I mean, there's how many hundred or how many thousand realtors is there across the country?
A bajillion.
Yeah. So how do you find the right people to work with? How do you know who's the right one for you? And it comes down to, a lot of people just go based on referral. But, Erwin, you and I have a great dynamic. I think we can have some pretty honest conversations. That isn't to say that you could have those honest conversations with everyone. So there's a component too of, it's not just about what potential coach knows. It's about, what kind of experience do they have? What kind of communication do you have with them? Are you able to have these really honest conversations? I think a lot of the clients that I work with, because my husband and I are in the business, a lot of people are newer investors starting out, and they typically are working with their spouse. No, that doesn't mean that those are the only people I work with, but because I understand how difficult it can be to work with your spouse on a day-to-day basis. And now you go from, it used to be I'd go to work and I'd have 10 hours a day all to myself. And he'd go to work and he traveled for work, and he'd be, he'd call me from Turkey or Hungary or Poland or wherever he was, that particular week. And, we'd have a few minutes conversation or whatever. I mean, technology makes it so much easier now, but to transition from that into, both of you making decisions on the business, deciding where money is spent and what you're investing in and what your systems and processes are that you're creating, that creates a tremendous amount of conflict within a marriage. So sometimes when I'm doing coaching, I actually feel a little bit like I'm kind of a marriage counselor too, which is sort of a different dynamic. There's so many factors to consider when you're hiring a coach. And I think you really want to look at the depth and the strength of their experience. And is it in line with what you're looking to achieve? Are they living the life that you want to live?
Right.
Do they
Elizabeth,
have
you make a really good point. So that's something I never thought of either when I'm giving advice to someone when screening a coach. What are their relationships like? For example, I had a friend of mine who said that their coach is never in relationships. So if you are the student and you have an important relationship, like a wife or a husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever, you can't accept, there's no advice in that area. Your coach won't be able to contribute to that part of your life. And for anyone who doesn't think that's an important relationship, my word is that husband, wife, spouse, whatever it is, that's probably your biggest joint venture there is. Sorry. So Elizabeth, continue.
No, it's okay. Actually, you remind me of my husband and I joke because my husband's Catholic and I was raised Presbyterian.
Uh-huh.
So, in order to get married in a Catholic church, you had to take something called an engagement encounter through the Catholic church. It was a weekend course. And while we were there, it was taught by a priest. And I'm not in any way slighting, the Catholic Church or anything else, because I enjoy going to church with my in-laws and my husband and I. We enjoy spending time, learning and that kind of thing as well. But when we were there, the priest said, being in a marriage is like my relationship with the church. And he said, I'm in a partnership and it's just, so I'm teaching this course to you as couples because it's the same as my relationship with the church. And I was kind of in my head going, when was the last time the church talked back to you? Or didn't put the toilet seat down, or, forgot to let the dog out. These are you disagreed about where money was spent. It really, I like you said, I believe in the value of learning from people who are similar to you and have, similar goals to what you had. And,
practical experience.
Michelle Gauthier, my business partner, she and I spend a lot of time talking about, we've been real estate investors just a few years longer than she and her husband, Mike, have. And there's definitely times where we can sort of see some mirroring and, issues that she's facing or encountering. We encountered them a few years ago. So we're able to talk things through and, come up with a game plan. And then she's able to move forward with some confidence and some information. And I think that, if you can save yourself the time, money, and energy from learning each and every lesson that, other people have learned, spending the time, money, and energy, why wouldn't you do it?
Just want to take a step back. You said you work for Legacy. What was the other name? Can you share the other name that they used to operate under?
I think the other name Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay, because I think that name is more familiar with folks.
I think so. Yeah, Legacy.
I think so.
Legacy is the educational company, and they do a fantastic job. I really haven't come across they're just so focused on education and making sure that people have the knowledge that they need. When I started out, I was actually teaching the lease options course and the negotiations course. And then when there was the opportunity to teach this brand new course called Momentum, I was really excited about it because what it did is it meant that all new investors who joined the company, who joined the Legacy family, they had the opportunity to take my class, which meant that I got to meet all of them. And we really talked about laying the right foundation, like building a house. You're not just going to show up on a patch of dirt and start throwing up some walls. You got to lay the proper foundation. Especially when you're looking at real estate, because for most people, it's not, I'm going to dabble, I'm going to buy one or two houses. It's, I want to build a business. I want to provide for future generations. I want this, to provide income suitable for my retirement. So there's things you need to do, asset protection, corporations, proper structuring that needs to be done. So I've been very proud to be a trainer for Legacy and to be able to teach the Momentum course for the last, it's almost 4 years I've been teaching that course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing now? Are you taking?
Ask.
Well, I'm trying to help let people know what you're offering. How do you help people today besides Legacy?
I have a few different ways that I help people. And this is what I meant about sort of changing gears a little bit by the end of the year. What I want to do is be able to focus more of my time on giving back. So I've joined the Economic Development Committee in Kirkland Lake, and our mandate is to bring new businesses and opportunities to our local community. I have joined Ontario Landlords Watch as an executive member. Basically, we are committed to educating the government and, basically everybody about the challenges and the roadblocks, not just for landlords, but also for tenants with the current Residential Tenancy Act. There's no doubt that we need a complete and total overhaul. And it's amazing how many people have these ideas about, the protections that are offered or aren't offered that are not accurate at all. So I get the
just
opportunity.
Give us private shares. That's such low hanging fruit. Someone else is going to pay for it. Come on.
Absolutely.
We will pay for it.
We have a case where we have a rent to own. We obtained an eviction order against them. And so we waited all the time, L1, everything, eviction order at the end of November. He filed a stay and we don't go back. The stay is ridiculous. No rent has been paid. Nothing's been changed. Just And we're not going back to the landlord tenant board until the 28th of January. So he's gotten another 2 months of free rent.
Where's the property?
London.
Ontario, not England. Okay.
No, not London, England. There's so much going on in Canada. We've done some stuff in the US, but I like to focus on the markets where I know and I'm comfortable. So,
sorry, quick question before I let you finish your point. Do you have a local sheriff in Kirkland Lake?
The sheriff comes up from Haileybury. So on top of waiting the time, you pay for 150 kilometers each way in expenses for the sheriff to come up and do the evictions. And it generally takes about 6 weeks after the judgment's received and the paperwork's done and the notifications and everything happen.
How many jobs we could create if we allowed private sheriffs? I'm not saying replace the existing sheriffs, and just allow for private sheriffs and we can create jobs.
And that's definitely one of the things on our radar. That's definitely one of the things that in our meetings with politicians that we are advocating for is there's a number of different sort of ideas that we have had, and we're looking forward to definitely in this coming year we've got some pretty big plans in terms of some of the education and the advocacy we really want to do on behalf of the Ontario landlords.
Amazing.
So I have that going on.
Oh, and then I want to share this with you because everyone gets baffled by this story when I share it. So as a real estate geek like yourself, I don't mean to call you a geek.
Thanks, Erwin.
I just naturally talk about real estate almost everywhere I go. So when I was in Florida, I was talking to another landlord. We were talking about tenant landlord rules, and we got on the subject of non-payment of rent. So how it works in Florida is, so it's a big issue here because I think Kayla shared with me that this non-payment of rent is like 70% of hearings at the tribunal. So that's massive, right? What they do in Florida is you do not get a hearing for non-payment of rent until you put 1 month's rent into their version of the tribunal, into their trust account to prove you have the money.
Interesting.
Right? What does that cost? Nothing, right? Prove you can afford it. That's it. Right? And then you can have your hearing.
Absolutely.
How many of the 70% would they eliminate? Probably at least 80% of them.
Oh, yeah.
At least. Probably more.
Simple.
So simple.
And the thing is, not all tenants are bad. I mean, we have some fantastic tenants and we love our tenants. And what those good tenants don't realize is the bad tenants are dragging them down, costing them more. It's like shoplifting, right? The people who buy a product are paying for the theft of the product from people who didn't pay for it. And good tenants who take care of their properties. And I mean, we don't have issues with pets because it's not pets who are the problem. It's the pet owners who aren't cleaning up after them and supervising them and, paying attention to them. And it's the good tenants who are actually suffering. So it's not that it's, landlords against tenants in Ontario. It's that it's inefficiencies and rewarding bad behavior.
It's rewarding bad behavior. And if we could limit the cases that need to go to tribunal, then the tenants who are being wronged by the landlords, more of them will be heard in a more reasonable fashion as well.
Absolutely. It's funny.
There's lots of that too. I've been to tribunal.
Absolutely. And it's hard to tell too, sometimes whether people, they really just don't know any better. Like, some of the landlords and some of the Facebook groups I'm part of, like I can tell they really want to, they want to be good landlords. And, with the right tenants, you can have that relationship. And then there's, other tenants where you can have bad tenants and you can have bad landlords and you can have, the opposite as well. So.
But I don't want to get too far down this. The bottom line is
that'll be a podcast with Kayla, right?
We've already had that. But if you ease up tribunal, then more people will invest. More people will invest means more housing. More housing means more affordability. Increased supply means they'll bring down the cost. That's just standard economics. Say I'm a new investor, like Elizabeth Kelly, I'm looking for a coach. What do you do? What do you do to new investors?
To them or with them?
Either.
So the first thing I like to do is I start with an assessment of where they are so that we are both on the same page in terms of what assets and resources they have. Because it's not just about your ability to qualify. It's about how much knowledge you have. It's about how much time you have. And then from there, we talk about where they want to go. What are their goals? What are their plans? And then from there, I want to lay out a really structured plan in terms of these are the steps you need to take. Now let's do an assessment. Where are you missing knowledge and information? And I think, people use the term coach and mentor interchangeably. the way I look at it, and it could be different for everyone else, but the way I look at it as a mentor is someone who sort of guides you. As a coach, I feel like part of my job is to educate as well. So when I talk about, asset protection, there's a component of my coaching program where we're going to spend 30 minutes of a coaching call, and I'm going to talk to you about asset protection, what you need to do, why you need to do it, what that looks like. And then you will be, part of your homework will be to, contact 3 lawyers and talk to them about how, they would structure it and everything else. So I believe that there's an education component, there's a support and a structure component, and then there's an accountability component from the client's perspective. If people are not committed, if people are, going to do a couple of sessions and not do the homework, I firmly believe that we only have a certain amount of time here. So I want to invest my time in people who want to grow a sustainable and scalable business, because we all face bumps. The challenges that new investors have, they get educated, they start investing, and things go really well for a period of time. And then there's typically a plateau, and that has to do with scalability. That has to do with the systems and the processes that are in place to be able to, transition responsibilities. When you hire your first staff person, what systems and processes do you have to enable them to seamlessly take over the tasks that you used to do, so that you can move on to the highest and best use of your time. And that's what we've really focused the last few years on, is building these systems and processes, tenant screening, tenant management, all those different processes. It sounds silly, but they're essential, so that when a new person comes into the business, you can teach them and train them, and they can take over and give you the ability. Ultimately, you should be looking at transition planning and transitioning yourself out of your business. If you want to be, if you want the financial freedom and the time freedom that 99% of investors envision when they get into real estate, you have to put the systems and processes in place. And it's usually around the 2-year mark that people start to feel that pain. And that's when typically people will come back. And we did exactly the same thing. We had a mentor through Legacy when we took our courses. And then 2 years later, we came back to the company and went, okay, we're stuck. like we've had 5 different filing systems now. We're still struggling, trying to figure out the best way to organize the
and
rafts
actually for new
paperwork.
software too.
Yeah.
There you go.
You get
it's
a new
forever
software.
evolving.
Exactly. Yeah. So we actually did a second mentorship. And I've had a couple of coaches along the way, a couple of mentors. And now I'm, like I said, in December, I spent some time agonizing over what direction and who to choose, who to align myself with. And then I really looked at the way I chose my coach was I looked at his life. And we talked a lot about, the pain points that he'd had in his life and what it took to get to where he is, and how he was able to, because like I said, with Michelle and I, when we talked about, a few years, we were a few years ahead in experience because we'd started a few years earlier. So Oliver, my coach, he is a few years ahead of where I want to be. He's transitioned out. He's got his time freedom. And he works, he tries really hard, 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week. And that's where I'd like to be. And I'd like my time to go into things like advocacy, like education, and focus on quality of life as well.
Amazing. So again, short on time. I've narrowed it down to 3 questions. I have a lot more. So I wanted to ask, you mentioned tenant screening. Is there something you implemented within the last 12 months that you could share that's been effective for you?
I have things I'm certainly willing to share. There's something we've implemented in the last 12 months.
I'll share one. Okay, so I'm not recommending anything. I'm just here to share. I'm not trying to discriminate against anyone. I had one landlord who has lots of doors in the hundreds. And his thing was he wouldn't rent to anyone with a tattoo above the neckline.
Oh, yeah. So
I'm sharing. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm not trying to stereotype or judge. I'm just giving literally someone else's thing, right?
We do a lot of social media screening.
Yes.
And I've had tenants tell me that's illegal, which it's not. But especially in smaller markets, you normally can't do credit checks because credit just isn't the same thing up here. Or in smaller markets, there isn't the education, the support, the knowledge. There's lots of people with bad credit. So we don't do credit checks, but we're a lot more intensive with our with reaching out to previous landlords, with reference checks, with, social media screening, that kind of thing. And it's really, I find a lot of property management and tenant screening is about the relationships you develop. And that's a lot easier in smaller markets. In Toronto, you're probably calling another landlord and you don't know who they are. You've never met them before. You've had no interaction with them. Whereas up here, top 10 landlords in Kirkland Lake, we have relationships with all of them. And,
Right.
and if we call and say, yeah, I'm looking to do a reference check on a tenant, then, but certainly if there's something, for example, if you'd like me to share my form, is that what you're kind of thinking about?
That'd be amazing, but that's a big ask. I'll reserve that for my clients if we go over there.
I don't mind doing that. That's no problem.
That's amazing. It's very generous of you. Okay, as always, no one's prepared for these questions, so you can say no to this. Have you shared what happened to Emmett, why he was off work for so long before? Because the reason I ask is because I think these are valid concerns that landlords should know about. And I'll give an example. I'm not a sexist. I consider myself a feminist, but especially when it comes to the females on my team, on my real estate team, I am very concerned about when they do showings. Because I have a real estate team. I have a team of real estate agents. So I have strict guidelines that they do not meet people they do not know at vacant properties where no one lives and no one's ever going to check on them. So they must meet, anyone they meet for the first time has to be at the office or at least at a minimum Tim Hortons before they go see the property. And then also I want a photo of their ID.
Oh, good.
And that has
to
be sent to people on our team before they will take them to the property. Because personal safety of my team matters more to me than a sale. Like that's just
absolutely
a joke. Otherwise, that's just a joke, right? So you can share or not share, totally fine.
So I don't tend to talk about this because it's not so much my story to share.
Or even just a lesson out of it?
Well, no, I'm willing to share it with you because I have talked to my husband, because especially when I decided I wanted to focus, I wanted to be able to focus more time on coaching. I said to Emmett that I think it's important that we're honest, because people look at Facebook and they think that that's the real life of an investor. And Facebook is not real life. So I think it's important to share some of the challenges. So on Family Day weekend in 2017, we were here in the office working, and we were expecting a tenant to come in and make a payment. And my husband went out to meet with them. They were tenants who had done damage in the unit. We had taken photos and prepared an invoice and said, here's the photos, here's the invoice. This is what you owe us in addition to your rent, because you didn't give proper notice that you were leaving. And there were 3 of them, and they actually jumped my husband in our office building and assaulted him. So the experience we had with the justice system was not fantastic. And he started going downhill from there. And by the end of June, we were able to get him assessed. And he actually spent a week in hospital. And he was finally diagnosed with PTSD. Just from the assault and it's when you feel safe in your own place, it's very disruptive to your mental health to have that taken away from you. And then to know that, or to feel that the justice system, we were sort of confronted. And I mean, we have some fantastic police officers up here. I know there's a lot of people in the justice system who work really hard. We have great relationships with the OPP. But it just came down to, this was the first time these people had been charged with something. And so basically they got a 12-month, stay away and behave yourself, and this will vanish like it never happened. And in the meantime, my husband's dealing with having to go for blood checks and screening because, we have no idea that the justice system doesn't require that people who are victims get provided with, blood or health or anything else from the people who assaulted them. So we have no idea if there's any health or safety concerns long term. It was just a really traumatic, upsetting experience, and the fact that it happened in your home and you no longer feel safe in your own in your own place was really challenging. And it's an ongoing battle. I mean, there are some days where, and I've become very attuned to Emmett now, where I can sort of see days where he's struggling or having a hard time. His concentration isn't there sometimes. His focus isn't there. He can't handle, some areas of conflict and stress. He can't, he doesn't respond the way that he used to. So it might sound insensitive. In some ways, it's actually brought us much closer together. Because instead of him being like this big tough guy who never talks about his feelings and never talks about what's going on, we spend more time kind of connecting and checking in and how are we feeling about things and sort of looking at, how does our gut feel? So I think it's been a tremendous learning from that perspective. The interesting thing was I was in a room with Kayla from OLW and a bunch of other property managers, and there were 10 of us there, and we were meeting with a couple of politicians. And I said, just as an aside note, I said, how many people here have been physically or verbally assaulted by a tenant? And every single property manager put up their hand.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that to scare people. I'm saying it because there's things that we could and should do to prepare ourselves for those challenges.
Absolutely. Like, for example, I take martial arts and I'm not very good at anything. But the first rule of self-defense...
I don't believe that.
The first rule of self-defense is to not put yourself in bad situations. So the everyday situation people can think of is, don't be out past 11 o'clock downtown Toronto. You can save yourself a lot of problems if you ever do that. And if you can be sober, even better. Right?
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in bad situations. And I'll give you an example. I was talking to a landlord just this week, eviction process. He was there with the sheriff. And he was telling me what was going on. The guy doesn't have a driver's license. He hadn't moved out. He's yelling and throwing things at the sheriff. And I said, you called the cops, right? He goes, no. He said he told the sheriff to call the cops, and the sheriff's like, I got this.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
Like, does anyone not see where this things could go bad? Right? So the point is, don't be afraid to call police.
No, don't be afraid to ask for help anytime you need it.
Yes. And don't put yourself into bad situations. Don't be alone with people.
Yeah.
In your situation, it's 3-1. Like, so that's the public service announcement I wanted people to know, because I know your story because you shared it with me. Thank you for sharing. And I make adjustments based on these things. Right? Just as simple as I don't turn my back to anyone. Right?
Yeah.
If I'm in a property, I don't turn my back to anyone. It's very easy. Just keep your back to the wall type thing, right?
Yeah. I think honestly, Emmett was just so shocked. I mean, he wasn't expecting that at all. But it definitely, brings the whole mental health thing. It brings it really. I mean, I think people can't appreciate situations until they go through them. And then when you see the impact that mental health has across all areas of your life, you realize really how important it is.
And I've always said this, like, we are way more fragile than anyone thinks. Like, take Emmett, well-educated, financially successful, happily married, right? But he's going through these things because we're human.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So moving on.
Yes.
What kind of outcomes have your students had, past tense?
Well, to be honest, most of them are still in my network of investors, which I consider a tremendous honor and really a gift. So the vast majority, I mean, do I have students who, for one reason or another have made the decision not to invest in real estate? Yes, I think that sometimes when you educate yourself, what you decide is that this isn't for you. The majority of the students and the clients.
In my opinion, it's right for everyone. It may not just be the right time for everyone.
That's a good way to look at that. I like that.
Come on. Look at the last 5 years, the 10 years of real estate. Who wasn't it right for?
Yes.
There are small pockets this wasn't right for, sure.
Well, and honestly, I always look at it from the perspective that even if you don't have the time to look for deals and do your power team, at the very least, as an educated investor, you should be using your RSPs and investing them in self-directed private mortgages. At the very least.
At the very least.
At the very least. Yeah.
That's very least anyone can do.
At the baby steps. Start with your RSPs. It's money that is accessible to you. It's money that you don't need that probably is not earning great returns right now. And it's money that if you can invest it and have that start preparing for your retirement, saving for your retirement, then it's, it's a win-win really.
Even a great first mortgage probably pays you a lot more than your mutual fund or GIC.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, for example, I know you have some students, past students of yours who are full-time investors now.
Yeah. I have quite a few students actually who are full-time investors. I have people who are successful business owners. I have one former student who is a very public coach and has written a few books and has quite a public presence. Well, you know what? Rochelle and Alyssa from Epic Alliance.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Rochelle Laflamme and Alyssa Thompson from Epic Alliance out west. They were students in my lease options course about 6 years ago.
Yeah, and they're on fire. Good congratulations
they
to
are
them.
taking over. They've got the West Coast, Saskatchewan kind of sewn up, and
wait,
now they're
Saskatchewan a coast?
Sorry, for here it's west for us, right?
The Central Coast.
Yeah, that's true. And now they're taking over the U.S. starting with Florida, right? So,
Florida, good for them.
Yeah, so those girls are absolutely driven, but it's just been such a pleasure to be able to watch them grow and see what they're accomplishing. I have a coaching client in Sudbury who is doing amazing things with rent to owns. It's really fascinating to watch how different everybody's journey is, and I think going back to what you were saying, I think the measure of any good coach is what outcomes do the students and clients achieve. And
ultimately, it's all about results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my goal is always to provide support to clients. I want to get you from, where you are now until you get your first property or your first couple of properties, until you have that level of comfort and you are, you're comfortable and confident in order to move forward, that okay, if I need information, where do I go and how do I tap into this? And, motivation is key as well for us as entrepreneurs, because a lot of what we do can be very solitary, except when we go to meetup events and everybody's talking about all the amazing things they're doing. So it's there's a lot of components that go into being a real estate investor, but the foundation, I think, is education and knowledge, so you make the right decisions.
Elizabeth, this has been a blast.
I love talking to you, Erwin. Thank you.
Thank you. It's just, I just want to ask questions, and I want my listeners to benefit. All right. Has Emmett's stories never been shared?
No, it took him a long time to get to the point where he was comfortable even with me sharing it.
Because I think people need to know it's not all sunshine and roses.
No, but that doesn't mean that it's...
And appreciate your property manager. Everyone send your property manager roses or a pizza or something.
we got treats this year. We got cards. We were spoiled. We were really happy. That sort of lets us know that, people are thinking about us and they're happy that we're, we work hard for them and for our tenants. And
suntanning gift cards for Elizabeth.
No, don't encourage bad behavior.
It's the downside of getting treats is, there's only so many treats you want, especially if you're trying to have a clean diet.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. After a while, your bum starts to take on the same shape as your chair. And then, it's time to get out and do something.
Amazing. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so open and honest.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again this year. Thanks, Erwin.
Fabulous. Thank you. If you're feeling confused after all the YouTube videos, books, and forum posts, you're probably still left with questions. Starting in real estate is really tricky. Trust me, I've been in this for a long time. And the real estate's always forever changing. What our strategy is for 2020 is very different than what our planned strategy was for 2019. Anyways, frustrated beginners often ask how legal basement suite conversions actually work. Most of the time, we can only give general answers, but now we can go deep. After this in-depth free class, you'll learn how to take your first steps as a real estate investor. Nothing's held back. Everything from analyzing basement suite conversions to renting out your first property for a profit, even how to refinance and do it all again. More secrets you'll uncover are how to profit in a hot market, municipal bylaws to watch out for, mortgage terms that favor refinancing, one barely used tactic for higher appraisals. And if you're frustrated, unsure how to get started, this is for you. Sign up now and be the first to know about the next class. You can go register at investortraining.ca/free class. Again, that's investortraining.ca/free class. And just to warn you, you probably want to do this soon. We filled up the first classes. We have 2 booked already for 2020. The first one filled up in 30 minutes. The second one, we don't know how quickly it filled up, but it filled up in the first day. So seats are absolutely limited. Demand is completely outstripping supply. So when you go register, when you see a new class opens up, register as fast as possible, and hope to see you there. And yes, I will be there personally. Hope to see you there.